North Wildlands. Today I'll be covering pewter and how it helps us in bullet casting. So the first thing we need to do is figure out where to get our, first thing to figure out is what is pewter. So pewter is somewhere around 95 to 97% tin. It includes a small percentage of antimony and also a little bit of copper. As far as bullet casting is concerned, antimony adds hardness. Copper adds a certain amount of elasticity. You can get really into it, and a lot of people put in purposely add zinc to lead, and then use copper sulfate, I believe, stump remover, which as it's removing the zinc, it replaces the zinc with copper. And they do that to have more of a mushrooming effect. If the content of antimony and tin are too high, then you get a frangible bullet, more or less, so it disintegrates on contact, which a lot of people don't want, and that's one of the reasons why I prefer to use pewter, because it's not pure tin and has a few other aspects to it rather than straight tin. Generally, you want a percentage of tin to antimony about 3%, 50 to 50 tin and antimony. And because shooting, casting lead is really a whole bunch of minerals put together, it has quite interesting properties. It hardens over time, but then also it softens over time, extended time. And the 50 to 50 ratio slows down that process. If I'm wrong, this is what I've scoured from the internet. Just make a comment and let me know. So where do I find my pewter? Well, secondhand stores, sometimes places like Kijiji, Marketplace. And I only use stuff that is stamped, the percentage and the tin. So what has tin? Well, here is pewter from Holland. It does not have any percentage mark. Oh, before I get carried away. So pewter existed before, but it had a higher content of lead, and that's where lead poisoning, yada, yada, yada. But if you really dig into it, the only time there was any issue with lead was when there was a acidic liquid put into a pewter pitcher. So wine was a big one. Some of the beers was another big one. So anyway, other than that, you'd be hard-pressed to get lead poisoning from the older stuff. I have older stuff here. So I have older stuff here, and it usually isn't marked pewter. I forget the exact year when the everybody decided to actually stamp, one, that it's pewter, and two, that it is the percentage of tin. So these ones here, you can feel they're a lot heavier, and they also, if you look, they also tarnish a lot faster and a lot darker. So some of these plates here I have, they're probably 1800s maybe, early 1800s. This is a newer one. And then sometimes weird stuff like this doesn't feel like pewter at all. But it's got the maker's mark on it, and it has a 90 on the back. So I would almost say this is probably pure or mostly antimony and a little bit of tin. So we have plates is a good one to find. We have, this is an old German clock that I was able to pick up. So, and again on the back here, It says 93% tin. Holland pewter is another good find. That's actually the more rare is Norway pewter, Holland pewter. The most common is Sheffield, England pewter. And you'll find tons and tons of these mugs. And again, you can see these are the newer ones. They're shiny, they stay shiny. And going back to the Holland pewter, you can see that it's not quite as dark as pewter containing lead. So, and then we have wine goblets. So this one is, it looks like French. And I'd say this is probably pure tin, just by the look and feel of it. And the other way is, if you can squish it like that, hope you can see that. That's real tin, because tin is soft. So we have lots of Sheffield mugs. Now normally I don't like to pay more than $2 or $3 because of the work involved. All these mugs were $2. And it gives you roughly a roughly 3/4 of a pound. Canada, we have our own maker, which is, if I can find, Seagull. It's made here in Canada, really big with picture frames. So I get a lot of Canadian stuff. And then I've already cut up a bunch of these. Candlesticks too. So again, this one doesn't say, but it has the maker's mark on the bottom and it says 90% tin. So if I put all these together, and like I said, there's some 90% tin, 97% tin, probably pure tin. I figure I end up somewhere about the 94, 95% tin. And that's sort of what I go by. Generally what I end up doing for the mugs. Now I will throw out a word of caution. These handles are hollow. And you have to be careful when you throw them in, because every once in a while they either have moisture in them or the air pressure builds up before the metal can melt. So normally what I end up doing is I have a pair of good tin snips. And I just cut the bottom open. Now you have to be careful in the bottom here. Usually there's a clay sealer. But I have found rubber before. And the other note I will say is that this ring here at the bottom, is sometimes aluminum. And you can usually hear it when you smack it against the ground. You have to be careful, sharp edges. So this is pretty much what I do. Pop the glass out and you'll see at the bottom it either has glue and all that will come out when you melt it down. Much like lead, I usually use a little bit of pine shavings just to get some of this other stuff out. Plus some will have a clear lacquer coating. So I always use pine shavings even when processing this. So that's pretty much what I do. Cut off the handle, that goes in separately. That's what I cut off the bottom. Sometimes I'll fire up the big pot, do it all at once, depending on how much of this stuff I have. During the winter month, when I'm already starting a fire, I have a lead ladle, and I will stick that into my fireplace and melt a few ladles full of pewter. So I hope you found that somewhat useful. Don't be afraid to substitute this where it calls for straight tin. It really doesn't change much. There is there's a lead hardness calculator on the internet. You can get it at Cast Bullets, and you can put all the weights and everything in there, and it'll tell you what it is. Biggest advantage of using tin is that it helps fill out your mold when you're casting lead bullets. So generally, from what I read, you want 3 to 5%. Don't be afraid to scour stuff, and like I said, only use stuff which actually have the symbol stamped on the bottom that they are tin. And there is etane, I think, etane, whatever. There's pewter, there's tin, and there's a few others. So go on Google and Google a few different countries or a few different languages for tin, and let that be your guide, because there's at least, I forget what the Italian one is, but there's lots of stuff to be found. And as far as finding this, if you can find an area which has an older populace, I think we're sort of getting to the end of it with my age, but if you can still find people, or an area where there's lots of people with 70, 80, 90 years old, they probably all still have some pewter. And normally what happens when they pass away, it all ends up in the at the local Goodwill or similar. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. Good luck hunting. To be honest, I almost enjoy hunting for pewter as much as I do casting and shooting. So take care, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.